I'm going to take a look at Ravnica Allegiance. This is not a full review. I spent a lot of energy on a card-by-card review for Guild of Ravnica. I don't want to do it again. It was 3 hours. It was too long. So this is only a video of all the cards that I find interesting for discussion, and they're interesting in multiple ways. They can be interesting because I want to build to them. They can be interesting because they suck, and I'll be saying, like, why? And I notice a lot of that about the mythic rares in this set. I'm wondering why they seem underpowered. But anyways, I'll discuss them one by one for the ones that I think are notable. And I'll be focusing mostly on the cards that I want to build to, either in commander decks or constructed decks. So Hero of Precinct 1, it's a bear outright, but whenever you cast a multicolor spell, you get a token out of it. That's pretty good. It forces you to have a lot of multicolored spells, which means that you have to have a really good mana base, but still, I think that's really nice. Impassioned Orator or Orator is here only as one of a series of cards that I'll show, just to show examples, tangible examples of what the Battlecruiser era has done for Magic. I don't know if it's good or bad. I don't like power creep. I'm not sure that I like the opposite of power creep, but it's better than power creep. And so, for example, this card is really a very toned down version of Soul Warden, which is one of the key cards in the modern Soul Sisters deck. And so instead of paying just a 1 white, you got to pay an additional mana. It's got the exact same creature type. It's a little stronger. It's a 2/2. That's better. But you can only gain 1 life whenever your creatures enter the battlefield, not any creatures. So, for example, in the case of Soul Warden, if you're playing Commander, anytime your other 3 players at the table have creatures coming in, you gain 1 life. So you can gain a ton of life of a Soul Warden. Whereas for Impassioned Orator, you can't really. Justiciar's Portal. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. I like it. I really like these flicker effects. So you flicker a creature. Now it's true, you're not flickering a permanent. You're only flickering a creature, but it gains first strike. And if you hadn't entered the battlefield, ability, you get that. But you better make sure it's got haste, because otherwise you're going to be putting first strike on something that has summoning sickness. Lumbering Battlement is very interesting because it exiles all your non-token creatures, any number. So you tuck them under it, and then it gets +2/+2 for each card exiled that way. You're temporarily exiling your own stuff. That can really suck. It only has vigilance. It doesn't have flying. It doesn't have hexproof. It's a very interesting junk rare. I wouldn't mind building a casual deck to it, just for fun. Then the Ministrant. Afterlife is okay, but your creature has to die. Now, creatures that replace themselves are always very good. And I think this particular one I like. It's a 3/2/1, but then when it gets whacked, or you whack it, you gain 2 tokens. That's pretty good. I actually think that's pretty good. And they have flying, which makes a difference. Sky Tether, it's actually a very interesting enchantment aura, because it only casts 1. I really like that. Now, you make a creature have Defender and loses flying. Yes, that's going to target only specific creatures, but a lot of times in limited also, but just pretty much in any format, you're going to be facing some big flyer that's coming at you. And so this is great because you basically turn it into a wall. And that's really good. It's not as good as outright destroying it, although actually if you destroy it, you are giving an opponent the opportunity for fetching it out of the graveyard or reanimating it. In this case, it's going to stay on the battlefield, but it's got Defender. I don't know. I think it's good. I like Sky Tether. Then the Tithe. is a good enchantment. When it comes in, it's a little mid to late game, but it's good. It can slow down your opponent. Anything that can slow down your opponent in a death and taxes sort of way, I think it's good. All right. So whenever an opponent draws a card, that player may pay 2. If they do, they get a treasure token. I'm thinking about it. Yeah. So if they don't, you create the token. All right. So if they say, no, you're not going to slow me down, I just drew my card and I'm not going to pay 2, you get the token. I think that's good. I find that would be good with even more opponents, because every time they draw a card, they have the choice. Either they pay 2 so they get slowed down, or they give you a treasure token. They were going to draw the card anyways. This costs you 4. It's sitting on the board. It can be easily taken out because enchantments can be destroyed. I still like it. I still think it's a good card. The formation, the part about creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn is a great way to prevent specific board wipes. That's good. I don't think that's particularly great. The addendum is what I like, because you can put a +1/+1 counter on each of those creatures, and they gain. Now, the fact that they gain vigilance until end of turn may be good for that specific battle. It may be completely a waste, okay? But I really like the fact that no matter what you do, you prevented yourself from a board wipe, and now your critters are bigger, and those counters stay. I really like that part of the card. Then the Tithe Taker is a little bit like Talia. I like to pronounce her Talia, but because I like to pronounce it in Spanish, but Talia, as pronounced in English, it's similar. I like it a lot because it is not legendary. I think that's really important. So if you can have more than one of the Tithe Taker on the board, I think you're in business, because spells your opponents cast cost 1 more to cast. So it's all spells, not just non-creature spells. And your opponent's activate cost 1 more to activate unless they're mana abilities. And when somebody whacks this dude, he leaves behind a 1/1 flyer token. I think Tithe Taker is really, really good. It reads really strong, especially because it is not legendary. I really like that it is not legendary more than anything else. So I even read it as a better Thalia. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I really like the Panther. I like to find cool commons that are good. That doesn't happen often these days in Battlecruiser Magic. So in Battlecruiser Magic, often there's just one good common in the entire set, which used to not be the case. It used to be, say, if you look back at something like M12, which was a cheap box, incredibly enough. I can think of like 3 or 4 really good commons out of M12. So in the Battlecruiser era, you can actually not look at any of the commons in an entire set, and you'll be fine as far as finding value. But I like this guy, the Panther. Give it a black. Now it's got Death Touch until end of turn. That's not bad. It's a 1/1/2. Essence Capture, a little bit like Essence Scatter. Of course, it's got the casting cost of the original counter spell from Alpha Beta. But I really like the counter that you get. That's really good. I really like that. It's identical to Essence Scatter. It's got a more limiting casting cost, but you get that counter. I like that. Mass Manipulation, you got to pay a 4 extra, and you got to be in blue. I read this as a commander card. I don't think this is going to be any good in constructed, because you got to jump through the hoop of the 4 mana, and it's XX. So it's doubling it. So say let's just do X equals 3. Let's just try to gain control of 3 target creatures and or planeswalkers. You're going to be paying 10. Okay, at 4 you're going to be paying 12. At 5 you're going to be paying 14. So yes, in a situation where you are the control player at a commander table. Hopefully you're the only one, which means that of course you're pissing off everybody else, and that's probably the last time you're going to play with those people. But anyways, let's just say that you will be controlling the living daylights out of everybody, and you get to the point where you are the one who can do anything. And if you got a ton of mana, yeah, this would be great. The perception is just like Jace's Ingenuity, upgraded from uncommon to rare, and it's got the addendum, and I really like it. You get Scry 3, and then you draw your cards. That is considerably better than just drawing the 3 cards. When you Scry 3, you can go really deep, and you can draw way better cards than if you had not done Scry 3. I love it. It's a little too late. I mean, you're not really going to be doing this in Constructed, I think, unless you're really on a heavy control shell, which is going to make you a lot of enemies. I love playing mono blue, but I know that when I used to play a lot of mono blue when Theros was around, because Theros had a really good mono blue, what was it called? It was called Devotion to Blue. It was really great, but man, did I piss people off on MTGO. I mean, of course, it's very easy to get a lot of hate on MTGO. Luckily today, almost nobody plays in there, so the number of haters has gone down because the total number of players has gone down. But boy, I used to get a lot of hate for playing mono blue, and this card would have been one that I would have put in there. Shimmer of Possibility, just putting it in here so I don't forget. It's only a sorcery, it's not an instant, but I really like having in any set cards that allow me to look through the top of my library. And it doesn't put them in the graveyard, which is good, so I like it. Just wanted to mention, it's a nice comment. I'm always on the lookout for nice comments. Prying Eyes it's just a better opportunity. Actually, no, it is a worse opportunity, because unless you're doing something funny with your graveyard. So it's just like Opportunity, but you draw your 4 cards. Actually, it's only you, it's not target player, so you can't even use it to mill somebody. And then you have to discard 2 cards. So actually, it's a worse opportunity. I hadn't thought about it that way. It actually is worse. So it's kind of like a battle cruiser opportunity, if you can imagine that. Verdi Circle is an enchantment for 3, and whenever a creature an opponent controls becomes tapped, if it isn't being declared as an attacker, you may draw a card. And then for 5, you actively do that. You tap target creature without flying, so you cannot hit their flyers. I think this is pretty good. I mean, it draws you cards. Anything that draws you cards under 4 is usually going to be, you're going to want to do something with it. I really like it, because then I would be, now, of course, you're going to have to be in a creature heavy meta, so that is only going to be in a standard. That's not even going to be in Commander, perhaps, I'm not sure. Yeah, maybe in Commander because you're playing 3 other people. But yeah, I like it. I would have all kinds of effects that tap my opponent's creatures. I'd be playing something like a Tamillo from Avacyn Restored, which is one of my favorite planeswalkers of all time. And then I would be drawing cards like crazy. So I like it. Quench is only here just to mention how Battle Cruiser works. It's exactly like Mana League, except instead of forcing your opponent to pay 3, now they pay 2. Just little examples of how the opposite of power creep has happened. I'm not sure it's good or bad. I just like to mention it because it does change the relative power level. Also, what it does is it increases the value of all these sets like M12, which were really cheap when they were out. I mean, I remember M12 boxes going for $75 when it came out of standard. And so it's incredible that today, 2019, we look back at M12 and tons of cards in M12 are way more powerful than anything that comes out in any one of these current Battle Cruiser sets. Awaken the Erstwhile is really interesting, okay? So it's a sorcery, it's not an enchantment. You do it in one shot, and everybody discards all the cards in their hand, and then they create as many tokens as they discarded. Now, you're going to want to be on a discard deck, and you're going to force either one or more opponents to discard just about everything. and you're the only one who's got anything in your hand, hopefully you'll be playing all kinds of tricks where you can draw a lot of cards. Maybe even you want to have a trick where the size of your hand is not limited to 7. And that can be a game-ending move. I really like it. I can see this card makes me think, and I like that about it. So I think it's a solid build-around fun rare. It's going to be a junk rare, but I like it. I like it a lot. I'm always on the lookout for corner cases with junk rares, where even though it's a junk rare, it's not going to be a money rare. I still want to play it. So I want to play Awaken. The Priest is a solid card. You tap it, you sack 2 other creatures, and then you force other people to sacrifice 1 creature each and lose 2 life. You get 2 mana to play with, and you draw a card. That's great value. Of course, sacking creatures is not great. I mean, there's a ton of cards in this set that give you a benefit for sacking creatures, but a lot of times sacking a creature is very, very costly to your tempo, unless, of course, you design your deck where you have all these token effects, and then with the tokens, you're sacking 1/1 tokens, so it's not a big deal. Then the Spirit has Menace and Death Touch. It's alright, doesn't fly. But I really like the clause. Instant and sorcery spells you control have Death Touch. That means that if you were going to give something -1/-1, you really are killing it. That's how I read it, and if I'm reading it correctly, that's really good. Even though it comes in like kind of mid-game, I think this card can be really powerful if I'm reading it correctly. Sometimes I read the card wrong, and it's either way stronger or way weaker than I think it is. I love the Bone Splinters Altar's Repair. It's one of my favorite pair cards to think about putting in decks, all kinds of decks. I just like the effect. So Altar's Reap for 1 black as an instant. You sack a creature, you draw 2 cards. A similar card, Bone Splinters. You sack a creature, you destroy target creature, and it's only a 1-drop, but it's a sorcery, so you cannot use it as a battle trick. Now, in the case of Bankrupt in Blood, which is the new card, it's a lot like Altar's Reap, but at sorcery speed instead of instant. And you got to sack 2 creatures instead of 1, but you get 3 cards. I don't know. You get to draw 1 more card, and if your deck has a bunch of tokens, you don't mind sacrificing 2 creatures. But now you're a sorcery, so there's 3 things in here, 2 of which are worse and 1 which is better. So the only one that's better is that extra card. The other 2 are worse because you have to sack an additional creature, and now you're not instant, you're a sorcery. I don't know. I like to try it. Carnarium has a lot going on, and I don't really know if it's a good card, but I want to look at it. So it's a 3-drop board wipe for low critters. So everything gets -2, -2. Then you exile a bunch of creatures that were put in the graveyard. So all those creatures that you killed off go in the graveyard unless they were tokens. Yeah. So that's good. It's a way to clean up the graveyards. But you're really going to want to do that only if you are not benefiting from your own graveyard. So you have to be careful how you use this card. But I like the exiling effect in case your opponent really depends on the graveyard. I mean, it would be a great card against the Golgari deck. It would really mess them up because, especially early game, if they have a bunch of little critters. Yeah. Okay. The drill bit, it's not that great. It's a sorcery for 3 to look at somebody's hand and get an online card. But the Spectacle cost is good. I really like Spectacle. Of course, it requires setting up. And you would be surprised how hard it is. Just like in the case of Golgari for Ravnica, Guild of Ravnica, you know, having a large number of creatures in your graveyard is not as easy as it seems. It actually takes a lot of setting up, and you would be surprised how difficult it is to have 3 or more creatures in your graveyard. The same I found when I played the original Rakdos with Return to Ravnica. It's actually a lot of work to be constantly hitting your opponent for some life. But still, I think this is a nice card because if you are able to pull that off and you cast this card, you only have to play one black. So I really like Spectacle, with a caveat. I do think it requires more setting up than people think it does. Then the font is an enchantment, and whenever you pay life, you put a bunch of blood counters on it. So you're going to be paying life, put blood counters, and then for one black you can use them 4 at a time to destroy a creature. That's pretty good if you plan your deck around it. So I like build around cards like this. I don't think it's going to be a powerhouse. I think it's another build around junk rare. I still like it a lot. Gutter Bones, I'm comparing it with Blood Soaked Champion from KTK from Cans of Tarkir. Similar in many ways, but I don't think it's as good. Still, it's a rare, it's a 1-drop, it's a warrior. There's a difference in the second tribe. It's got some weaknesses and some strength. So it enters tapped, whereas Blood Soaked Champion did not enter tapped, but Blood Soaked Champion could not block. Now, when the condition for raid was met, meaning that you attack with a creature, so you had to do it on your end step, you could pay 1 black and return it to the battlefield. The case of Gutter Bones is kind of like a version of that, because so you don't have to wait to attack with a creature, which has something. Pay the same casting cost, so that's even, but you return it to your hand. Okay? And it's only if your opponent lost life this turn, which will typically happen with an attack. So they're somewhat similar, although I think Gutter Bones is a little weaker. I must say, and this will go through for all the cards that I talk about, I don't think I'm going to find I don't think I found a single mythic rare in this entire set that I felt was a money mythic. And again, I haven't played the set, so I don't really know a lot about it. I could be completely wrong. I could be completely wrong in how one of these mythic rares interacts with the cards that are already in standard. But I'm only discussing these because I happen to think they all suck. I think that all the mythic rares that I've seen in this set are really not that mythic at all. That's just my opinion. Maybe it's a second set thing because I had this big thing with Guilds of Ravnica where, oh wow, Ravnica 3. Maybe because the hype is already kind of like dampened. I know Gatecrash had the same thing for me, that when Gatecrash came around, I was like, okay, there's some good stuff in it, but it just didn't have the punch of Return to Ravnica. I feel the same way about Allegiances, so let's discuss these and see if I find something in here that I like. And I'll keep going through all the mythics and saying the same thing. I just didn't find a single one where I was like, oh wow, that's a really incredible effect. So for Spectacle, you only gain 1. Your casting cost only goes down by 1. Again, it requires a lot of setting up. It's a Flying Trampler, square 4/4/4. That's pretty good. Not mythic. And then it deals damage to each player, which includes you. So at the beginning of the turn, it pings you for 1. And then if you have 10 or less life, you put a counter on it. Well, dude, you have 10 or less life. That's not good. If you're doing that, I would want to get more than a +1/+1 counter. I think if it had said, if you have 10 or less life, you draw a card, or put a +1/+1 counter on up to 3 creatures you control, or put 3 +1/+1 counters on this card, then it's got a huge clock. Yes, you're playing this thing where you're low on your life, but man, you've got a gigantic flyer trample. You don't with this dude. It just doesn't read mythic. I'm sorry, it just does not. This card reads almost like an uncommon. Just saying, or a junk rare. It's definitely a junk mythic. I can be wrong. Then the Haunt, it's a 6/3/3, so it already comes in. It's very weak. As people used to say, before Lightning Bolt left standard forever, dies to Lightning Bolt. When it attacks, defending player discards a card. That's very good. Whenever a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, this thing gets a +1/+1 counter. That can actually be pretty good. I mean, if the number of cards that land on opponent's graveyards is 4, then you're putting 4 +1/+1 counters. Okay, so I think this could be better than I thought about when I first read it. Then red. I really like wall of text junk rares, especially red ones, so I like to just take my time looking through them, even though I always know that they're junk rares. So this is a 4/1/1 critter. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Okay, so you're digging for a creature. Until next turn, this card's base PT becomes twice that card's PT. And then put the reveal cards on the bottom of your library in a random order, so you're not draining to your graveyard, which is good for this case. I think it's really cool. I mean, I would love to build something around it, because you can put stuff in your library that is otherwise very difficult to cast. Things like, 7-drop critters that are like 7/7/7 or 6/6/6, and this card becomes really huge. It does not fly, doesn't have haste, doesn't have lifelink, doesn't have anything. It's just a plain card. It's still, I think, a worthy build around. Rare, I'm not sure if it's a junk rare. I'm not sure, but I like it. Then the Cavalcade is an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control with power 1 or less attacks, it deals 1 damage to the player or planeswalker that creature is attacking. That's really good early game. I mean, I'm not sure if you want to build a whole deck where every creature has power 1, no matter how big it is. So you're going to be limited in when this enchantment actually gives you the benefit. But if you're setting up in a Rakdos shell and you want to have this pinging effect going on, this at least will give you that pinging effect some of the time. Okay, because then you could have said, oh, now I've paid my spectacle cost. That's fine. Electro Dominance, X with 2 reds in front, deals X damage to any target. Normally cards like this are X red, not X red red, so you're paying a little bit more. But I really like the you may cast a card with converted mana cost X or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. I think that's fantastic. I really like this card. It's at instant speed. I mean, I like it a lot. It reads really strong. Actually, it should have been a mythic compared to all the junk mythics in this set. Which is good for pack cracking, because then you can pull it as a rare. Then the Shaman is a little bit like a Frenzied Goblin, just a Battle Cruiser version of it. So Frenzied Goblin comes in as a 1/1/1, and you got to pay that extra red, so target creature cannot block this turn. So you're playing 2 red for that effect. In the case of the Clamor Shaman, it comes in with Riot, so it's got an advantage. It'll either be a 2/2 or it'll have haste. And then when it attacks, you do the same trick. I don't know. I don't think it's as good as Frenzied Goblin, but it's got a cool effect. I mean, it comes a little later. It's a little bigger. It's got a few more bonuses. I think still Frenzied Goblin has a huge advantage in how early and how disruptive it can be. I mean, I've lost a lot to Frenzied Goblin. I don't expect to lose a lot to Clamor Shaman. Then the Gathering is very interesting in a constructed deck, because you create a number of 1/1 goblins equal to 2 plus the number of cards named this card in your graveyard. So you create 2 the first time, you create 4 the second time, you create 6 the third time. This card was made for a Krenko deck in Commander, just made for it. So of course, I'm sorry, I take it back, not in Commander, a Krenko constructed deck, because in Commander you only get 1. What am I talking about? Forget I said that. That was stupid. Then the Shaman, it's a 2/1/3. Whenever an opponent activates an ability of an artifact, creature, or land, that's going to be happening a lot. That isn't a mana ability. That can happen. It deals 1 damage to that 1 player. This is another one of these Rakdos cards that have some provision where there's pinging involved, and I really like it. Now for 5, it gets +3/+3 and gains menace until end of turn. I don't really like that at all. I think that you're never going to want to use that, and you're going to want to do this guy early, so it hits hard with the pinging. It just sits there for a pinging. It should even be an enchantment, but it's a creature. The fact that it's a creature, I don't think it's that important because it's a 2/1/3. You're not going to be doing much with it. It's almost like a wall. Anyways, but it's worth thinking about. Light Up the Stage is yet another one of these poor man or poor woman's lightning bolts that have come around in the battle cruiser era. So it becomes a lightning bolt. Okay, type. I'm sorry, not a lightning bolt, but it's one of those cards where a heavy casting cost can become just a 1-red. I take it back. It's not a got nothing to do with lightning bolt. But you exile the top 2 cards of your library, and then you may play them. That's pretty good if you can scry, if you can filter. And if you're already setting up for Spectacle, it only costs you 1 red. Never mind the lightning bolt. I don't know what I'm talking about. Then Rick's Mighty Reveler. It's a 2-drop. It's got a huge Spectacle cost, and that means it must have a great bonus because of the Spectacle cost. So discard a card, draw a card is a normal thing. Instead, if you set up for Spectacle, you discard your hand and draw 3 cards. If this is the last card you cast, you're not discarding anything and you're drawing 3 cards. Scorch Mark. It just gives us an idea of how toned down the power level of red pingers has come down from Lightning Bolt, which would have been a 1/3. Doesn't exile anything, but it still would have been a 1/3. This is a 2/2. Okay, the Hellkite is here only for me to mention that I'm just reading all these mythics and they read terrible. I mean, it's a 5/4/4 flyer. It can become a 5/5/5 flyer, or a 5/4/4 flyer with haste, and then it's got a 3 red, which means that it's mid to late game. Deals some 2 damage, whatever, and you can only activate it if it's got counters. I mean, this thing is just not reading mythic at all. This would have been an uncommon or a rare in some other set, or in older sets. That's just what I think. Skewer the Critics. Oh, this is the card that I was talking about. Yeah, I'm sorry. This is the Lightning Bolt with a clause. It's a setup clause. So yeah, you have to have been set up for Spectacle, and if you are, this is Lightning Bolt at sorcery speed. Again, you're taking a hit in some way because you're in Battle Cruiser Magic. The Biogenic Ooze, I don't know. Yet another mythic that doesn't read mythic. So it enters the battlefield and you only get 1 lone 2/2 token. And then you keep putting +1/+1 counters on each ooze you control. Well, you gotta be set up with a bunch of oozes. This is a lot like all those cards that people fall in love with that say, you get this effect for however many creatures you control. Well, you'd be surprised how hard it is to control 5 creatures. I mean, if you're controlling 5 creatures, you're already winning anyway. So what do you care that you're going to get another benefit on top of that? And if you only control 1 creature, the benefit is nothing. And yeah, okay, for 4, you can create a token. That's nice. 4/2, so it's a half exchange. I'm sorry, it just doesn't read mythic. That's just my opinion. The Biogenic Upgrade, I like it a lot. It's pretty cool. It's an uncommon. You're only going to use it end of game. Very casual, but I really like the whole distributing counters, and you double counters. So that's pretty good as an end of game, kind of like an overrun effect. I like it. Then the Guardian, for 3, you adapt 2. So if it doesn't have the 2 counters, you put them on it. And then whenever 1 or more counters are put on this dude, you use Tutor for another one like it. Yeah, so I like it. I like it as a fun, casual thinning of your constructed deck. Guardian Project reads to me like a card that would go in pretty much every single green commander deck that I can imagine. Maybe I'm not the greatest commander player, but so whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it doesn't have the same name as another creature you control, that's always going to be the case in Commander. Or a creature card in your graveyard. Again, always going to be the case in Commander. You're going to draw a card. That's it. That's all it says. That's fantastic. I mean, that's fantastic. You put this thing on the board at 4, so turn 3 or 4, and from then on, any creature you drop draws you a card. I mean, what's not to like? I love this card. The Druid, it's a 2/2, so it's kind of like a wall. But for 5, late game, you can make it a 3/2. That's underwhelming. I'm not sure that I would care to do that, so that's kind of junky. But the tapping I really like. Add 1 mana of any type that of a land you control could produce. And if it's got a counter, you add 3 mana. So you want to put the counter, it's not because it's going to become a 3/2, which is underwhelming at 5, but because it's going to give you a ton of mana. Of course, you already have to control that type of mana. That's fine. It doesn't have hexproof, which would have made it really amazing. So it's going to get whacked. So I don't think this card is going to go anywhere other than standard constructed. I still like it. It's not legendary. You can have more than 2, more than 1. Then the Rampage, destroy all artifacts and enchantments, and for each one, its controller puts a 3/3 green centaur token. So what I was wondering about when I was reading this card is, would I want to do this on myself at a time when, in the case of my opponents, it would hurt them? And I really like this type of card because it's clearly a junk rare, but it makes you think. Okay, so it makes you think in the case of you're in green-blue and you've got a mass effect that's going to send all of your opponent's creatures, or maybe all creatures on the board, to people's hands. So basically, you are outright destroying all the artifacts and enchantments. And then the downside, you can mitigate with a bounce effect. I don't know. It reads like a junk rare, but it's something that I would think about just for fun. The Wayfinder I really, really like. I think this is a really strong uncommon, and if it keeps going this way, creatures just keep getting stronger and stronger. It's a 2/2/1, and it's got a whole sorcery stapled on it. I mean, all that text, it's just a sorcery. This could be some other card that was not a creature, was a sorcery, and it cost 2, and it would say, it would not say when it enters the battlefield because it's a sorcery, just to say sorcery. Look at the top 4 cards of your library, reveal creature or land, then put it on top of your library, the rest at the bottom, so it's a scry effect. That's really nice. I like it. Wilderness Reclamation, I like a lot. I mean, this becomes a huge mana source mid to late game. So at the beginning of your end step, untap all lands you control. You got to make sure you have things that you can cast. But yeah, like in a Simic deck, this will be amazing, and pretty much any deck, this will be amazing. It's only an uncommon. I like it a lot. Then for Azorius, which I didn't see anything that really blew me away. I'd be like, oh wow, I really want to play Azorius. I didn't. Deputy of Detention is interesting because it's one of these temporary exile cards, and it's for non-land permanents. That's pretty good. Comes in a little mid to late game. It'd be a much better if it was kind of like a Detention Sphere, which I don't remember if Detention Sphere was 2 or 3. I could be wrong in saying that it's a 2. But either way, it's all right. I like it. Emergency Powers, I think it's yet another one of these mythics that I have in here for like, you know, yeah, I guess, 7-drop. You give everybody 7 cards, and then you get to free cast something. But that free cast something has to be really amazing because you just gave everybody 7 cards. I don't know. I don't get it. Ravnica, I think it's an interesting legendary. I'm probably going to build something to it. So each opponent can cast non-creature spells with converted mana cost greater than the number of lands that player controls. That's really good. Your opponents have 5 lands. They can cast a 6-drop. Yeah, greater than the number of lands that player controls. But that's usually the case anyways. I mean, if you have 5 lands, you cannot cast something that's a 6-drop. I don't get it. I don't get that. Cannot cast non-creature spells with converted mana cost greater than the number of lands that player controls. That doesn't make any sense. That's usually the case. Now, the second clause, I think it's great in Vintage, because whenever an opponent casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, Vintage and Legacy, I mean, that's going to be Force of Will, that's going to be the Moxen, that's going to be Black Lotus. You can counter that spell. So I really like that second clause. I'm still not understanding the first clause. I don't get how that would ever happen unless they had lands that produce more than 2. So, okay, maybe, yeah, okay, for Tron. So in the case of Tron, they're going to try to cast something that's like a 10-drop with fewer than, yeah, okay. All right. So it's there for lands that produce more than 1 mana. Okay. I can see this card being good in Eternal formats and not making a dent at all in anything in Standard, which is fine. Yeah, very interesting. I think I want to play it with my Power 9 in MTGO and see what happens. High Alert. It's one of these Assault Formation types. That's why I put an Assault Formation in here. So it's the same as Assault Formation. It turns your walls into really powerful critters because creatures you control can attack as though they didn't have Defender. Now, what's beautiful about High Alert versus Assault Formation is that in Assault Formation you had to pay that extra green. So it was 1 green green. This is 1 white blue. Yeah, that's good. And for 4 you can untap target creature, whatever. That's fine. But yeah, I like it. I like High Alert. It's very creative. And definitely now that it's going to be coming out, you could have a High Alert Assault Formation deck in Modern that really went nuts on the concept. You could pick which one you thought were the stronger, and you do 4-2, or you can go all the way and put 4-4, 4 of each. I don't know. I like it a lot. Then I'm showing every single one of these double casting cost cards because I think they're all pretty good. Some of them I'm sure are not going to be as good as the others. In the case of the Azorius one, spells your opponents cast that target this card cost 2 more to cast. So it kind of protects itself, and it's a flyer. It's decent. I don't think it's one of the better ones of the lot. Then we're up to Simic. Biomancer's Familiar. Activated abilities of creatures you control cost 2 less to activate. Yeah, that's really good. But it cannot reduce the mana to less than 1. That's fine. That's fine. I like that a lot. You tap it. Now that the clause is still true whether you tap it or not. That's really wonderful. The next time target creature adapts this turn, it adapts so it had no +1. That's good. So you can get a second adapt on a creature, and you can do it multiple times. So if a card has already adapted and you did this to it, so you gave it you allowed it to adapt again. Yeah, this is infinitely many adapts on anything. It is how I read it, and if that's the case, that's fantastic. Then the Simic Guildmage. Most of the Guildmages are terrible. This one I thought was pretty good because the casting costs of the triggers for tapping it are actually very low, 1 green or 1 blue, and getting an additional +1/+1 counter is a great bonus, especially if you're casting more than 1 creature in that specific turn. So I think that's very good. The moving counters business I also think is very good. because then you can rebalance your deck, your field position. So I actually think this is one of the guild mages that is better than the others. Then the double casting cost ones. In this case, it's a counter spell on a card. I like that. It's got flash, so it's really just a counter spell that becomes a vanilla 4/3/2. That can't be bad. I mean, counter spell is counter spell. The Lizrog does not protect itself. If it gets whacked, it gets whacked, but I really like it that it's only an uncommon, and it can become really big if you're on a counters deck, and it gets all those counters to put on top of it doubled. And it's your choice. You can remove any number, so it's not like it forces you to take all the counters from all the really good stuff. You can have a bunch of counters on a bunch of crappy stuff, and you may want to have a big trampler. This will be it. I like it. Growth Spiral, I also really like. It's an instant, draws you a card, and then it allows you to put drop a second land. I like it. I mean, it's restrictive because you gotta have those 2 mana. I think it's a very good card. The Gyre Engineer, nice mana door, gives you 2 for 1. I like it a lot. 3/1/1, yeah. I think it's really solid. Great uncommon. Simic Ascendancy. You get a +1/+1 counter for paying 3. That's a little on the heavy side, but I think it's worth it because you're going to be in green. You're going to have a lot of mana anyways. Whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on a creature you control, put that many growth counters on this. Okay, and then when you get to 20 counters, you win the game. I'm not crazy about the win the game clauses. They're always a little crazy. I still like the enchantment. Zagana is, I think, the one that I want to build to. Prime Speaker is the one that I don't, but I could be wrong. Again, I'm looking at all the mythic rares and I'm not impressed, or I don't really like any of them. But I could be wrong about Prime Speaker. So Zagana enters the battlefield. You are going to control another creature with a +1/+1 counter on it. You're going to draw a card. The Adapt 4 makes it a 4/8/8. It doesn't fly, doesn't have anything else to it. But it does give every creature you control with a +1/+1 counter trampled. That is actually a really good clause. The 6-drop clause, I'm not sure it's going to be that great because it doesn't fly. If it flew, I'd be really impressed with it. As in, like, I would really want to play it. I mean, who cares whether I'm impressed with something or not? I'm just some nobody on the interwebs. Prime Speaker, you tap it, you sack a creature, and you search for something that costs 1 more, and you drop it on the battlefield. You can only do it sorcery speed. Can you have something that untaps this and you get to do it again? What's the value of sacrificing something at 5 to get something at 6? That's going to have summoning sickness, so you're kind of slowing yourself down. I like it in the sense that it makes me really want to study how that would work. I love to see somebody make it work. I don't see how you could make it work. I mean, you're sacking a creature to drop something else that's 1 more. It better have haste. I mean, if everything in your deck has haste, then you can pull it off, because then you don't really care. You're just going down the staircase, up the staircase. I don't know. I don't see any. I don't get it. I don't get it. The Simic double cards look interesting. Usually these cards are terrible. I always love them for collection purposes, and they're always unplayable. All of them, going all the way back to Invasion. Maybe 1 or 2 have come out in modern decks before that I've seen. Everything else just doesn't register at all. Maybe there's going to be 1 in this set that'll be the exception. I would love that to be the case. Incubation. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Get a creature. Put it in your hand. Rest at the bottom of your library. That's not bad for 1. Incongruity. Exile target creature for 3. That's actually really strong. and then your opponent gets a 3/3, that's fine. I forget which card does that in Magic, but I think there's a specific card that does that. Maybe not, maybe even for 2. But I think that's good. If it's something that's really about to kill you, this card will save you. So I like it. Repudiate, counter target activated or triggered ability. That's fine. The replicate is the one that I really like. Create a token that's a copy of target creature you control for 3. Yeah, if you've got something that's like a 6-drop and you want a second copy of it for 3, I'll do it. Then the Bell Hunt, again part of the cycle that I really love, enters the battlefield. Each opponent discards a card and you gain 3 life. That's not bad. It's still a 4/3/4. I don't think this cycle in here feels as strong as the same cycle in Guilds of Ravnica. I could be wrong. The Wrath is the Wrath. Gaining life has to be for a purpose. Otherwise, it's kind of delaying the inevitable if you're going to lose. But a board wipe is a board wipe is a board wipe. And this is a board wipe at sorcery speed. Mortify is here from Guild Pact. It's a reprint. Great card, really good card, and I love the artwork. Seraph of the Scales, yet another mythic that just doesn't feel mythic to me at all. I mean, it's a 4/4/3, which can become a 5/4/3 with Vigilance, or a 6/4/3 with Vigilance and Death Touch, and you got to keep paying the cost. I don't get it. Yes, it replaces itself with 2 tokens. That's the better part of the card. But for a mythic rare, that sounds kind of crazy. I don't. All these mythic rares, from the mythic rare perspective, don't read like mythic rares at all. That's just my opinion. Tasha, if a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So it's kind of like a Panharmonicon for triggered abilities. I really like it. Creature tokens you control have Vigilance and Lifelink. This is gotta be, if not the one of the top 3 cards in the set that I want to build a commander deck to for fun. This one is awesome. 4/4. It doesn't do anything for itself, so it better not get whacked. But the doubling of the triggered abilities, I really want to see how good that is, and it could be really, really good. It's gonna be at least a lot of fun to build to, and I'll leave it at that. Revival of Revenge. Return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. That's not bad. Double your life total. Target opponent loses half their life, rounded up. It's a big effect at 6, but man, you're doubling your life total. I like that. Then Rakdos, which I think is a guild by itself that I really want to play. So I think so far, Simic I want to play, Rakdos I want to play. Actually, when I look at the set, now that I've looked at many of the cards, to me this set is a Jund. This could be like Ravnica for Jund, because I don't really like that much a lot of the white and blue cards, and I have found many red, green, and blue and black cards that I like, and I like some of the Rakdos, and of course Gruul. So Simic is the only one that breaks the mold for this set for me that I like, and of course I'm preambling what I'm going to talk about in Gruul. So it's really Simic, Rakdos, and Gruul that I like in this set. Okay, so Bedevil, destroy target artifact, creature, or planeswalker. So it's a kind of it gives you more. What's the red-black from Return to Ravnica, the destroy target planeswalker? I'm forgetting the name because I'm old, but I think you guys know and girls know what I'm talking about. So yeah, I think this is a very good card. Captive Audience is only here for me to discuss how much I think all of the mythics in this set suck. This card sucks. It's a 7-drop. By that time, you should have won the game with something else. Okay, even in Commander. And you give it to an opponent, and that opponent is in a bad spot. Because you keep choosing one that hasn't been chosen, and bad things happen to you. Except for you get the 5/2/2 zombies. So you get one good thing and two really bad things. Very creative, very Johnny, very like, oh wow, look at this, how incredible, let's see what happens, gather around. It sucks. The Guild Mage, incredibly enough, the Rakdos Guild Mage I really like, not for the 3 black, but for the red, because it's a great setup card for what I think is always difficult to set up, and it's this constant pinging that you can do to keep your spectacle cost turning on. And so just for that, it's really good. Okay, the 3 black one, I don't even want to read it. Whatever, discard a card, okay, fine. The pinging one is, I think it's really strong, really useful. Okay, the Fire Wheeler is part of the cycle. Again, the double casting cost cycle in this set is not reading as strong as the first set. That's just my opinion. Enters the battlefield, deals 2 damage to target opponent, and 2 damage to up to 1 target creature or planeswalker. That's good, but then you end up with a 4/4/3. I mean, it would have been much better to not get this critter and to just cast an instant for 2 that did that. That's what I would have liked. Rakdos the Showstopper is way too heavy as a 6/6/6 flying trampler, and I hate coin flipping. I hate it a lot. And I think all coin flipping in Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Force of Will, and Magic sucks. But I'm still going to try this card in MTGO and see what it does. That's it. Theater of Horrors, an enchantment. Exile the top card of your library. If an opponent lost like this turn, you may play cards exile with this. So, and it keeps going. So, yeah. And then for 4, you're going to cost the trigger because you're going to hit for 1. I really like it. I like it a lot because the effect doesn't go away. It's always there. And so, okay, you exile 1 card when you drop this, and you don't have the setup, so you haven't hit for anything. Then, like 3 turns later, you're finally able to do it. You got 3 cards, and your opponent lost life this turn, and so then you get to play 1 of the cards. Yeah, I like it a lot. Yeah. Then of the double face cards, Carnival and Carnage is great because it's yet another case where you're setting up your spectacle. So deals 1 damage, that's great. Deals 3 damage, that's also great. So I like this card a lot. Then Gruul, which has the only planeswalker of the 3 that I like. The other 2 I'll discuss later on just because they're planeswalkers, but I don't know. Anyways, Cinder Vines, really cool enchantment. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, it deals 1 damage to that player. Okay, so in a constructed Jund deck where you already are setting up your Rakdos cards, you can also put this card in, and it's yet another setup for spectacle. I like it a lot. Then you sack it, you destroy something, deals 2 damage, that's fine. But the first class I really like, and it goes great into a Jund deck. And the Guild Mage for Gruul I like. 1 red, target creature cannot block this turn, that's pretty good. And the 2 green is not bad either. You take 1 of your lands and you turn it into a 4/4. I don't think that's bad. I want to try it. Domri, 4 with a 5 loyalty. Pretty good. Pretty good mid-gamer. +1 at red or green. And you can give a creature Riot. That's good. The -3, look at the top 4 cards of your library, or you up to 2 creatures from among them. Put them in your hand, the rest at the bottom of your library. That's pretty good. It's alright. Then the -8, you get an emblem. At the beginning of each end step, create a 4/4 red and green beast creature token. That's not fantastic, but it's good. I forget which Kiora, was it a Kiora that dropped an 8/8? Or 3/8/8, and it only did it once, something fantastic like that. This one, yeah, it's an emblem. It'll keep dropping 4/4s for you. That's not bad. It does not read like something that will be outside of standard, but it reads good. And it comes in mid-game. The Spellbreaker has Riot. So it's either haste or a +1/+1 counter, and it's got trample. And it has hexproof on your turn. That's good. Nikia, I want to build a deck with. It comes in a little too late as a 5/5/5, but I really like that you can't cast non-creature spells in an era where we continue to get creatures that have sorceries and instants stapled on them. So, and it of course is a great mana sink, mana pool, or mana whatever. So yeah, I think I want to build an all creatures deck to Nikia, and I want to see what happens. I'm very curious to find out if I can pull that off, either in Commander or in Constructed. So I like this card a lot as something to think about. Okay, and I can think of several cards that would go in it that would be really good. There's an enchantment, which has a Therese Nielsen artwork from Avacyn Restored, where if the top of your deck is a creature of the same tribal type as the one on your board, you can free cast it, something like that. I want to try that with this. Maybe even in Modern with a playset. Okay, Rhythm of the Wild, enchantment. Creature spells you control cannot be countered. Of course, it does not go with Nikia because you cannot cast non-creature spells. This goes into a completely different deck. And non-token creatures you control have Riot. That's good. I want to try it. It's a 3-drop, so it'll go early game. I definitely want to try it. Then the Shaman, part of the cycle, cannot be blocked by more than one creature. That's good. Deals combat damage to a player. Destroy target artifact or enchantment that player controls. And it comes in as a 4/5/5. I think it's fantastic. It really is. I mean, and you're in green, so you can do something where it actually comes in turn 3. So turn 3, 5/5 on the board that's doing this on turn 4. That's great. I mean, can I give it haste with something? I don't know. But it reads really great. The Goblin, it's already a bear with Riot. Wonderful. I like it. Love at first sight. Then both Gruul double-sided cards I like, or double cards. Collision deals 6 damage to target creature with flying. I'd much rather play a Plummet, but you know, it's fine. 6 damage is pretty good. It'll take care of most of everything. And then you boost a creature and give it trample. The casting cost is very low for both. I like this card a lot. Then Thrash and Thread I also like. It's got this fighting thing. But what I really like about it is that it also does it with Planeswalkers. That's very good. And then you can get a token, and it's square, 4/4/4. So you pay 4, and you get a 4/4 with trample. I like both a lot. I don't know why these Planeswalkers, I don't think they're good, but you know, when you see a 3-drop Planeswalker, you always think Liliana of the Veil. And then you start reading it and you're like, oh, this is not as strong as Liliana of the Veil, nowhere even close to that. So Davin, you get an extra loyalty counter when something hits to the face. Some critter hits to face. That's good. That's normally not going to be the case in Azorius. Azorius is not known for having a lot of critters that normally do that, but that's good. Then the -1, you get a 1/1 and you get 1 life. And then the -7, you look at the top 10 cards of your library and put 3 of them into your hands. That's great. You draw 3 cards out of a wide selection so you can pick some 3 really good cards. And that's it. There's no emblem. You do that once. That's it. I don't know. It better be good. That -7 meta better give you some 3 incredible cards. Because if not, it just doesn't, that ultimate just doesn't seem that strong. Okay? That's my opinion. Whatever it's worth. Then for Kaya, I feel the same way. +1, exile 2 target cards from a graveyard, whatever. Nihil Spellbomb can do all of them for 1. You gain 2 life if at least 1 creature card was exiled this way. Gaining life has to be something that you really need for something else. If not, gaining life only delays the inevitable, which means you lose. I don't get it. -1, exile target non-land permanent with CMC 1 or less. whatever. -5 deals damage to Tiger player equal to the number of cards that player owns in exile, and you gain that much life. I don't know. Maybe you can do it multiple times, and then that's a good thing about it. Maybe this is a new type of planeswalker that we need to become used to, where you don't think of the ultimate as an ultimate, and because the ultimate doesn't cost that much, maybe you do it multiple times, but it's not quite as multiple as an emblem, because in the case of an emblem, you always get to do it, and you do it every single turn. Maybe that's what the designers are going for. Maybe these types of planeswalkers will actually be very strong. It'll just require you to know, hey, I get to use the -5 multiple times. So I go in 3/3/3, I up it +1 a couple times, I hit a -5, I take it back to loyalty 1 or 2, then I boost it up again, boom, and I hit it with another -5. You can do that. And in the case of Davin, that's also true. If you set up your deck right, you can get to the point where you're dealing a lot of combat damage directly to a player, even if it's a small amount of damage, and maybe you can use the -7 multiple times in a game. That can be. Yeah, that can be. Artifacts. Multicolored creatures you control get +1/+1 for 2. It's not bad. Then the Sphinx. I think it's going to be great in limited. It's all colors, 7/5/5 flyer, hexproof from monocolored. That's good. A 7/5/5 flyer. It's going to be good in limited. I like it too. I don't know why. Just I like it. Then Tome. Whenever you cast a multicolored spell, draw a card. It's a little too heavy. Comes in at 5. Tap it at 1 mana of any color. That's all that I can find with the artifacts. And we're done.